In this world, money is just a memory, a concept as empty as a forgotten dream. Here, the currency of life is time itself. Every transaction, every desire, every necessity is measured in hours, minutes, and seconds. If you want a loaf of bread, you pay with a sliver of your life. If you crave a cup of coffee, you surrender a few precious minutes. Time is the only wealth, and each moment spent brings you closer to the end. Yet, there is a strange kind of equality in this world, at least at the beginning. When a person turns 25, their clock resets, and they are granted a single year to live, 365 days ticking away on their wrist, visible to all. From that moment, the countdown begins, and every heartbeat becomes a negotiation with fate. The rich, those who have somehow accumulated centuries of time, dwell in opulent cities where death is a distant threat. They live in comfort, surrounded by luxury, their clocks glowing with the promise of immortality. The poor, on the other hand, inhabit the ghettos, where time is a perpetual scarcity and survival is a daily struggle. Here, people labor endlessly, not for wages, but for minutes and hours, desperate to stave off the inevitable. Will was one of these poor souls. At 28, he lived in the slums with his mother, Rachel. On his wrist, the digital readout of his time showed only 23 hours remaining, a single day separating him from oblivion. His mother, though 50, looked as young as he did, for in this world, age is frozen at 25. Only the dwindling numbers on a person's wrist betray their true mortality. On the day of Rachel's 50th birthday, Will worked late at the factory to earn a little extra time. He bought a bottle of champagne, hoping to bring a spark of joy to their stark existence. Rachel smiled when she saw it, her eyes shining with gratitude and yearning. "I want to see my grandchildren someday," she told Will. "Why don't you date that nice girl you met?" Will shrugged, his face shadowed with fatigue. "Who has time for all that?" he replied, the pun as bitter as the truth. Rachel reminded Will about the bills, the electricity, the bank loan, each one a siphon on their remaining life. The price of everything was rising, as it always did, and she had only 3 days left. She planned to pay the debts and return, asking Will to wait for her at the bus stop the next evening. "I want to see you before my time runs out," she said, holding his hand and transferring 30 minutes from her own clock to his. It was a gift, a mother's love measured in minutes. After Rachel left, Will encountered a little girl on the street. She handed him a capsule, an ingenious device that allowed people to store and transfer time. Will smiled and gave her 5 minutes of his life, watching her run off, her watch now glowing a little brighter. Time capsules were the secret lifeline of the poor, traded like treasures, and hoarded against disaster. At the factory, Will noticed that the price of coffee had doubled overnight. Where once 2 minutes would buy a cup, now it cost 4. There was never any warning, no explanation, just a quiet theft. Will paid, feeling the minutes slip away, and worked through the day, his mind haunted by the ticking clock. That night, Will joined his friend at a bar, seeking a moment of escape. His friend, always drunk, pointed out a stranger surrounded by women, his watch displaying 116 years. Such wealth was unheard of in the ghetto, where most people lived day to day. Will recognized the man as a visitor from Greenwich, the city of the rich. He warned him about the danger. Here, time thieves prowled the streets, ready to kill for a handful of hours. The stranger, Henry, ignored the warning, lost in his revelry. Soon, the notorious gangster Fortis entered the bar, his presence scattering the crowd. Fortis was the most feared criminal in the city, stealing time from his victims with brutal efficiency. He challenged Henry to a deadly game, arm wrestling, with the loser forfeiting all their time. In this world, arm wrestling was more than a contest of strength. It was a battle for life itself. The winner held the other's wrist, draining their time as the loser's clock ticked down to 0. Henry, drunk and despondent, accepted the challenge, but asked for a few minutes to compose himself. Fortis sent one of his men to watch him, but Will intervened, rescuing Henry and leading him to safety. Alone, Henry revealed his truth to Will. He was 105 years old, weary of life, and burdened by the knowledge of the system's cruelty. He explained the mechanics of the world, the deliberate inflation, the engineered shortages, the creation of time zones to keep the poor desperate and the rich secure. The rich in Greenwich lived for centuries, untouched by the struggles of those in the ghettos. The system was designed to drain the poor of their time, fueling the immortality of the elite. Will listened, his anger and sorrow growing. If he had as much time as Henry, he said, he would stop watching the clock, buy his mother a house in Greenwich, and live without fear. Henry smiled, seeing hope in Will's words. That night, as Will slept, Henry transferred all his remaining time, 116 years, to Will, leaving only a few minutes for himself. He sat by the river, his clock running down, and died quietly. Will awoke to find his watch glowing with centuries of life. At first, he thought it was a dream, but Henry's note confirmed the gift. Will found Henry's body by the bridge, grief-stricken by the loss of his benefactor. He realized that such wealth made him a target and decided to leave the ghetto, seeking a new life in Greenwich. Before departing, Will waited at the bus stop for his mother, carrying flowers for her birthday. Rachel, having paid her bills, found the price of a bus ticket had doubled. She had only an hour and a half left and pleaded with the bus driver to let her ride, promising that Will would pay the difference. The driver refused, and none of the passengers helped her. Rachel began running home, desperate to reach Will before her time ran out. Will waited anxiously, searching for her among the passengers. When she didn't arrive, he ran through the city, hoping to find her. Rachel, exhausted and terrified, begged strangers for time, but no one helped. With only seconds remaining, she ran toward Will, who raced to meet her. They reached out, but Rachel's time expired before their hands touched, and she died in his arms. Will wept, consumed by grief and rage. Meanwhile, Henry's death drew the attention of the timekeepers, the world's police. Officer Raymond investigated the scene, reviewing CCTV footage and growing suspicious of Will, whom he saw near the bridge. Learning that Will had entered Greenwich with a fortune of time, Raymond set out to find him. In Greenwich, Will marveled at the opulence. The rich moved through life with ease, their clocks glowing with centuries. He stayed at an expensive hotel, drawing the attention of Sylvia, the beautiful daughter of the city's wealthiest man, Philip. Sylvia watched Will with curiosity, intrigued by his presence. Raymond's investigation led him to Will, whom he believed had murdered Henry. Will, seeking to use his new wealth, entered a casino, playing poker against Philip. He risked his entire life, winning through skill and nerve, and caught Sylvia's eye. She invited him to a party where they danced and connected. Raymond arrived at the party, arresting Will and accusing him of murder. He drained Will's clock to 2 hours. Seeking to punish him, Will protested his innocence, explaining Henry's gift and suicide, but Raymond refused to believe him. Will escaped, taking Sylvia hostage, and fled to the ghetto. Sylvia, convinced Will was a killer, refused to help him. Their flight was perilous. Fortis and his gang ambushed their car, stealing Sylvia's time and leaving them for dead. Will and Sylvia revived, sharing their remaining minutes to survive. Desperate, Will sought help from his friend, only to learn that his earlier gift of years had led to tragedy. His friend's wife blamed Will for her husband's death by excess. With little time left, Will and Sylvia sold her earrings for 2 days of life. Will contacted Philip, demanding 10,000 years to be distributed among the poor. Threatening Sylvia's safety, Philip refused, unwilling to aid the destitute. Sylvia, disillusioned by her father's indifference, realized the depth of the system's injustice. She and Will began robbing banks, stealing time capsules from the rich, and distributing them to the poor. Their actions made them fugitives, hunted by Fortis and the authorities. The government placed a bounty on their heads, but the people of the ghetto protected them, grateful for their generosity. Fortis eventually found them, challenging Will to another deadly game of arm wrestling. Will, facing death, summoned his strength and defeated Fortis, killing him and escaping with Sylvia. But the rich retaliated by inflating prices again, rendering their gifts meaningless. Will despaired, believing they could never defeat the system. Sylvia, refusing to surrender, devised a plan to steal a massive time capsule, 1 million years from her father's vault. She and Will infiltrated Philip's office, seizing the capsule and escaping, pursued by Raymond. As Raymond chased them, he ignored his own dwindling time and died when his clock reached 0. Cornered and nearly out of time, Will and Sylvia embraced, resigned to their fate. But Will spotted Raymond's car, transferring the remaining time to Sylvia just in time to save her life. Together, they witnessed the transformation of the ghetto. With the 1,000,000 years distributed among the poor, the people became immortal, free from the daily struggle for survival. The system of the rich collapsed, their monopoly on life shattered. The poor no longer labored for hours. They pursued their dreams, their lives unshackled from the tyranny of time. Will and Sylvia, united by love and purpose, became heroes, symbols of hope in a world reborn. And so, in the world where time was everything, Will and Sylvia proved that even the most entrenched systems could be challenged, that compassion and courage could rewrite the rules. The story ends not with defeat or death, but with the promise of a new beginning, as people everywhere learn to value their moments, not as currency, but as the substance of life itself.